Welcome back. I am Rudy Knapp, and this is Legacy Building a Kingdom. I'm excited to have this podcast today as we talk about a topic that's a little bit controversial, and we're going to find out a little bit why later on. My opinions on this have a lot of merit behind them, given the fact that I am a teacher of 22 years now. I want to have a conversation about the education system, and I want to talk about education as a whole and the importance of. But before we do that, this is a perfect time for it because students are getting out of school. The summer's about to start. Everybody hates teachers for having the summers off. It's great. It's a great time. Parents get to spend some more time with their kids. They're amazing, well-behaved young men and women. It is really, really a great time because summer's right around the corner. And I think everyone is excited, for the opportunities that come with being in the summer. So let's go back to that word opportunities. Why is education important? It's a little sad that I have to point this out, but we're going to do it anyway because I hear a lot of conversation about, do we need school? Do we need an education? I hear this from students very often, but it's funny when you hear it from adults as well. And let's really dive into that because I think there's a misconception in the education system, and I don't really believe everyone really knows what's going on. And so I'm here to spill the guts. I'm here to want to tell you exactly what is happening in your school systems, and maybe you'll understand a little bit more with some of the issues that I hear from parents, that I hear from students that really don't get it because they're not involved in that education system. You teachers out there, bear with me, support me if you can. If you disagree, great. Tell me you disagree. I love it. But here we are. So, why is education important? Well, what is the key to education? Well, it's finding and making and creating numerous opportunities. So, that word opportunity is very important. This includes career development, advancement. This includes increased earnings, possibly, potential increase of pay, right? And maybe just broader life choices. When you have opportunity, it creates those things. It equips people with knowledge, skills, and the ability to think critically. It empowers them to pursue their ambitions and make a positive impact on society. What does education do for you? Well, we all know we've been through the education system. We've been through from kindergarten through 12th grade at least. Some of us have gone on to college and have college degrees or master's degrees or doctorate degrees. We have a broad sense of what education means to us. And what I see is, depending on what you put into it, is what you're going to get out of it. Now, when I say opportunity, when you learn more and you continue to learn more, you're creating these opportunities in your brain. And so let me explain what I explain to the students and what I believe. I believe that you're a lifelong learner. No matter what you're doing in life, whether you're sitting in a classroom, whether you're sitting at home, you are learning from something. You're learning from somebody, or you're learning from something, some experience or somebody. So if you think about that for a second, if I'm hanging out with my uncle all day long, every day, I'm learning from my uncle. I'm learning his habits, what he believes, what exists in his life. If I'm hanging out with my parents as a child, I'm learning from them, their behaviors, from what they believe and what they're instilling in me. So let's make sure we point this out. The first, teachers. The number one teachers in this world are our parents, right? And we're going to talk a lot about parents today, so hang with me for a second. Parents are the number one teacher. They're the first teacher for every child, and they are the most influential teacher. As much as we can say, I had this great teacher, your parents are the number one influential, whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing. But your parents are the most involved in your life. So when I say this, I want to explain how I teach this to the students. One thing that I say, and I've talked to my own children many times about this, is that your brain is an encyclopedia. So we old people like me used to have to go to the library. These kids have Google all day long. They have everything at their fingertips. But when we go to the library, you have this encyclopedia or all of these encyclopedias. And it was just a plethora of these big books that had all kinds of knowledge in it. I mean, page after page of anything you can come up with. Basically, it was Google in books. And so obviously Google, and when we start talking about the internet, we talk about things that have even more knowledge that's available to us that we never had before. including videos and pictures and things that go with. But what I find is important is that you have to picture it as like an encyclopedia where everything that you are learning, everything that you are soaking in from a person, from a teacher, from maybe just a peer in your classroom, from a coach, from your parents, whoever that comes across your life, you're soaking in information. Whether it's right information or wrong information, you're soaking in. Just like on the internet, could be wrong. So as we go through and we soak in all this information and we're taking upon experiences with this information and what we are actually doing and activities, we're just adding them to our encyclopedia. And as we go through this encyclopedia, we may not need that information right now, but we may need it at another time in life. And so as we go through and we build this encyclopedia to have the biggest encyclopedia we possibly can, which we like to call our brain, we're creating an opportunity for us to use that information later on in life. So when you come across a job interview or you come across a situation where you're joining a club or you're part of something and you need that information to come out to validate who you are and what you know or whatever the situation might be, it's there, it's available for you. And when you make connections from your encyclopedia in your brain to whatever it is you're doing at that moment in time, you now have it available to you. Now, I tell this story over and over. Many people probably don't want to listen to this because they've heard me say it a lot of times. If you don't make connections, if you don't have information that was presented to you, if I don't give you an introduction to something, I have no ability to learn that, and I have no ability to move forward and make a connection to it, so I can't contribute. Now, you've heard me say, don't be the dumbest person in the room and don't be the smartest person in the room. You're in the wrong room if you're the dumbest person in the room or the smartest person in the room. And a lot of people disagree about the dumbest person in the room. I disagree with that because when you bring nothing to the table, when you walk into a room and you're learning something, you're in a meeting, you're in whatever situation, and you can't connect to anything that's being said in that room by all the other people, you shouldn't be in that room. You need to build up to get into that room. So you have to make connections. And if you can't make connections, there's nothing that's happening in your brain. So what I want is to be the person in that room that is learning from some people, that is teaching other people. And what happens is I grow, I become better. So same thing happens in the education system. Obviously, you're going to have somebody in that classroom that's probably going to be on the low end and that they need to make these connections, but your teacher is there to help make those connections. And what we do is we introduce at grade level. So I'm going to get this whole concept of Common Core out the window right now. So let's talk about Common Core because everybody hates this Common Core, this new math as we put it. So let's get into that because that's such a topic that I've expressed and talked about for many, many, many times. Now, everybody hates this new math. Everybody hates this Common Core as we keep putting it. Now, I'm a math teacher of 20 plus years. So I'm going to tell you that this is my job. This is my livelihood. So I believe I have a pretty good knowledge on this. I'm going to tell you this. This is what I taught for a living. This is what I've done for a living. And this is what I've taught teachers for a living. I'm going to explain it as thoroughly as I can so every parent out there can understand this concept. Common Core is not a bad thing. I'm not a big component of a lot of things that have to do with Common Core, but it is the right direction for our kids. Now, I will hear the same argument from every parent. Well, why can't we just teach it the way we learned it? Because you didn't learn it the best way you could. So if you are 35 years old or older, or you are 40 years old or so and older, you didn't have the same opportunities that your children have. And what I'm going to tell you is your children are going to be better off because of it. I'm also going to tell you that it also depends on your teachers. And so there's accountability factor that's going to go around in this podcast that some people are not going to like. But what I will tell you is this. As a teacher, Common Core is this. Picture this, especially math. I'm going to talk about math because that's what everybody has an issue with Common Core. They don't really care about reading and everything else. They care about math. And I'm going to tell you why it looks so weird to you. You have these strategies. It looks really weird. I don't know what my kids are doing. I can't teach them properly. How am I going to help them? I hear all the things. Number one, as a teacher, I will tell you this. Don't help your kids. Don't do homework with your kids. Don't do it for them. You are doing a disservice to your children. Stop doing their homework for them. Your job as a parent is one thing. Your job is to check over their work, make sure they completed it to the best of their ability, that they're not just cutting corners or writing something down, and that they're actually turning in their work. That's your job. That's it. Don't do the homework for them. Don't correct it. When you see it's wrong, don't correct it for them. Put it in the book bag, send it back to class, and guess what? Let that teacher do their job. That teacher's job is to see what misconceptions happen and what homework can help them guide their instruction. This is what I mean. No homework should ever come out to a child that isn't something that was already taught in that classroom. Now, if your kid is not paying attention in that classroom or not doing their job, guess what? That's on them. And this is a problem. But what I will say is they should have some knowledge of whatever was being taught before they got that homework. And so when they do their homework, it is for your teacher to see what is wrong with what they're doing, what the actual strategy they're using. What are they doing wrong? So that when we see that it's wrong, we can address it and we can go through it. So if it's a common thing against all these students in a classroom, we can look at it. We can say, okay, this is where we're going wrong in this classroom. Let me readdress this, or let me teach this in a different manner, so that we can fix the problem. But if parents decide that they're going to do the homework for them or correct them, the issue becomes is this. We can't correct something that isn't truly what they're capable of doing. So stop doing it for them. I will say this to every parent I've ever come across. I will say it to any child. Do your best. Make sure you give full effort, that whatever you're thinking goes on that paper, and you must show your work. Make sure your kids show their work and turn in their paper. That's it. So again, going back to Common Core real quick, think about it this way. If in your day what you were taught was this is one way of doing something and you're going to do it this way, or you're going to memorize it and you're going to do it that strategy, you get one strategy only for every topic, and that's the way it goes. And if you don't get it, oh well. That's how we were taught. That's how everybody was taught back in the day. But now we are taught many strategies, sometimes 3, 4, 5 strategies per topic. And in math, there's hundreds of topics per grade level. So we're not just talking, let me say this, we're not just talking about adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. I'm passionate about this, so bear with me here. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing is not math. I'm going to repeat that. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing is not math. That is called computation, and that is nothing to do with math. I'll take that back. It has something to do with math, solving math, but that is not considered the definition of math. So what I want to say is this: math and the definition of math is problem solving, which every single person in life has to do in life. So when I hear people and mothers and fathers that come into, parent-teacher conferences, and I hear my own friends and I hear my own family tell me, I'm not a math person. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You are always going to be a math person. Now, can you work at being a better math person? You sure can. But what you don't understand is you are a math person. You are a problem solver in life. You have to do it every day of your life for whatever it takes. How long is it going to take me to get to the store? You just did math problem solving. How much money do I need? If I buy this, how much will I get in change? You just did math. What you don't understand is problem solving exists because of strategies that we're creating to help us get to that answer, right? And so we're now saying that if we teach our kids, you are a math person, you are a problem solver, maybe the negative connotation will come out of them and it'll become a positive thing. Yeah, I have to problem solve. I have to get through things that are difficult. Math is based on perseverance, pushing through and continuous work on using strategies that you're learning or connections you made in life to help you solve something. It is not just adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Do I believe that you have to know your facts? Sure do. Yeah, know your facts. But do you have a calculator in front of you at all times? Yep. Even 6, 7, and 8-year-olds have a phone sitting in front of them that they have a calculator on. The calculator means nothing to you. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing mean nothing to you if you don't know that you're supposed to multiply, divide, add, or subtract when you are problem solving. Problem solving is word problems. It is life problems. It is us looking at a problem and realizing, what am I going to do to solve this problem? That's the key to math. Figuring out, what am I supposed to do to solve the problem? Do I need to add? Do I need to divide? What do I need to do in this problem? When you understand that, You'll understand success. You'll see that kids are growing. You'll see their scores going up. You'll see the difference. I will tell you what I've experienced throughout teaching. Every kid resorts back to adding because it's the easiest thing for everyone. So they'll see a word problem. They'll look at all the numbers. They'll just add them all up. Oh, there you go. Well, you're in sixth grade and you think your word problem is just adding them all up. That's the misconception we have. That's the issue we have because we are not looking at the words and trying to figure out or problem solve. What are they actually asking us to do? The tool is adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Solving the problem is called math. So just wanted to say that because I want to make sure that's understood. We will teach you 5 different strategies on whatever that topic is. So if we're talking about finding the area and perimeter of shapes, we will teach you different ways in which you can come up with area and perimeter. And what we do is we give you different opportunities, like here are different strategies. We're going to teach this strategy today. You're going to practice it in homework. You're going to come back. We might teach another strategy. By the time you're done with that skill, or what we call a Common Core State Standard, that standard, you may have 3, 4, 5 different strategies to get to an answer. Now, here's the key, and this is where educators go wrong and teachers are wrong. They weren't taught properly. And when they weren't taught properly, they're not going to teach it properly. So what they should have been taught to do was say, hey, I taught 5 different strategies on this topic. Now I'm going to assess or give a test on it. All right, so when I give that assessment, what I should be doing is giving those children an opportunity to choose whatever strategy works best for them, not the one that I was teaching the week before where I was going over the area model. I'm now going to start talking about you have to find the area of this shape. You can use whatever strategy you chose from the ones I've taught or from your brain, not even from ones I taught. You have an opportunity to take an assessment. It's like taking a test that in life, it's not going to be the same way that everyone else thinks. And all students think differently. So choose whatever strategy works for you and pick it and go ahead and use it and get the right answer. And see, what we do as educators, we try to test them based on one strategy. Again, going back to the old days. And then we test them on the next strategy. No, there should be one test based on the skill or the Common Core State Standard, and they get to choose whatever works for them. That model seems to be understood. Would you rather have one strategy, and if you don't understand it, you're screwed and you're getting it wrong? Or do you want 5 to choose from that you might relate to one of them better than the others? Yes, you might go back to the old ways, and there might be certain things that you might pick, and that's okay. But you get an opportunity to choose. So I'm going to say this. When you say Common Core is awful, yes, some of the strategies seem very difficult and they're very weird and we don't understand why. But what you as parents don't understand is there are these things in the education world called computation, right? And conception, right? We're understanding this idea of the concept, right? So I want you to understand concept versus procedural versus application. And so what we teach is this. Some standards will tell you procedural. You do step by step by step. Some are going to be conceptual, where we have to actually learn why are we doing these things. So what is the reason for? And some standards have procedural and conceptual, and we have to teach them both ways. And then some, ideally, will have procedural, conceptual, and application, real-world application. So now what happens is you have to apply those things. When we start looking at this and we start understanding that these standards are geared towards procedural, conceptual, application, or all 3, or maybe 2 of them, then you'll understand that we can't teach everything procedural like we were taught. We have to understand why as well. And we have to understand that we have multiple strategies to get to. So it is complicated. It is what a teacher does. It is something that is important for your children to grow and make connections. Now, why do these strategies look so weird? Because what they're teaching you to do is break things apart and put it back together. They're teaching you to create your encyclopedia in your brain of understanding how numbers work from kindergarten through 5th grade. All we do in math is we decompose and compose numbers. We break them apart, we put them back together. We break them apart, we put them back together. We understand fractions and decimals and numbers. It's number sense. And a little bit of geometry, a little bit of algebra, a little bit of things like that that come into play, but they're not what our focus is. When we get to sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, we are conceptual learners a lot of the time. We are going to look at why. We're going to add in algebra. We're going to add in geometry. We're going to add in probability, statistics. We're going to add in these things that are going to help us with this application to real world and understanding problem solving a little bit better by using the tools of knowing our number sense that we mastered from kindergarten through fifth grade. And we get to high school and we go in depth with geometry and trigonometry, and we add into algebra 2 and all these other things that come into play, because now those things become more intense that are geared towards actual jobs in this world. So when I start saying education and I talk about math, I've been doing this my whole life. And what I see is that because people don't understand, it becomes a negative thing. It's a positive thing. And so we have to push that it's a positive thing. So let's go back to that idea of our encyclopedia. Let's build up everything we can possibly have, because you might go, I'll never use algebra in my life. I heard it so many times. I never used x plus, 6 equals 20. Yeah, you've been using it since kindergarten. You've been using it since pre-K. When I have this many marbles, I have 3 marbles. I'm missing some marbles. Now I have 5 marbles. How many marbles am I missing? Oh, great. So you just did 3 plus x equals 5. You may not have the content of 3 plus x equals 5 at kindergarten level, but you surely are doing algebraic thinking. So when we start saying things out loud to our kids, what they're doing is they're recognizing what moms and dads and parents and uncles and aunts and everyone else is saying. And they're also modeling that it's okay to say, I don't need this. So that brings me to another point here. Let's think about education as a whole. Why is it so important again? Well, guess what? It's giving me opportunity. When I don't pay attention in class, when I don't learn, when I am at the first percentile, like many of my students have been, and have grown and have shown growth, because there's a lot of things in schools that happen that we have to do in order for success to happen. And so it gets back to this point. I want you guys to understand a few things. There is a failing school system that's happening for a reason. Some of it is by design. And if you really want to get into those conversations, we can. But it is designed to fail. It is designed to separate. A lot of it is based on economic status. It is designed to not be equal education. It is designed to show that no matter the way you want to look at it and hope that it's all even and equal, it's not. And there's an argument for both sides of it. So we can understand a few things. We talk about taxes and we talk about what we pay into taxes and how it goes towards education. And there's a whole lot of things that come into play. But please don't be naive to think that this is all equal and it's equal opportunity, because it's not. But does that mean that you don't have an opportunity? No. Every kid has an opportunity based on anything. Just by being in America, you have an opportunity to have an education. But it's going to be based on how much effort are you going to need to put in and how much resources do you have. Now, let's go back to that concept of why is education important? Well, it's opportunity. And we get opportunity throughout listening to other people. It's not just sitting in a school. And I want to be firm to understand this. I don't believe everyone should go to college. I believe that college is for people that know what career they're going into, that need extended education and need a degree. If you don't know that, all college will be for you is an experience that can help you as well, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. I don't believe in paying $40,000 a year to a school when you don't even know if you're going to use that degree. What I would say is, if you're in a trade, you are still getting education. You are still being trained. Those of you that are in unions, you're still learning before apprenticed, you're learning. But education exists in every field you're ever in. No matter what job you take, you're getting trained to do something that's called education. You're learning from somebody else. It is not just schools. It is not just teachers. And again, who is the number one teacher? Your parents. So let's talk about them for a second. Part of the failing part of a school system is parents. Now, disclaimer, I'm a parent. I'm part of the problem, just like I'm telling you, you're part of the problem. And ultimately, it comes back to what parents are doing that is hindering the success of their children. And I know this is unpopular. I know nobody wants to hear blame, and I get it all, but it's the truth. The behavior of your children is awful. And I'm not saying just in the rough areas, I'm saying it's in every area. There are kids that are entitled. There are kids that walk into school that have no understanding of how to talk to an adult. There are kids that act inappropriate towards other kids. These are skills that are killing their progress. They're hindering the education of those around them. They're hurting. Now, I'm not saying every school, and I'm not saying every child, and I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it's happening at such a rapid rate. I've talked to many, I have many educated teachers. I'm sorry, teachers and friends. I have many. And it doesn't matter where you're at. You can be in Hinsdale. You can be in New Lenox. You can be in Orland Park. You can be in Chicago. It doesn't matter. It is happening everywhere. Behavior is the issue, and our society is part of that problem. What we're allowing to happen in our society is allowing them to act a certain way in the schools. And here's why parents are at fault. Number one, that's their job. It isn't a teacher's job to discipline your child, but it has become that job. It isn't their job to have to sit in here and redirect and redirect and redirect and tell them to stop and continue on. It isn't their job, but that's what happens because the parents aren't doing their job at home. So even when you're talking to a parent, the first thing that happens is they're blaming a teacher. Their child does no wrong. And I'm talking in general, so please don't take offense if it's not you. But in general, this happens on a constant basis everywhere. And so what I see is when you are spending your time as a teacher focused on behavior and getting kids to pay attention and to give a full effort, are there kids that have disabilities? Absolutely. And no one is talking about that situation. We can get into that at another time as well. But what we're talking about is the general child that is sitting in the classroom that is disrupting the environment because there isn't success happening because the environment is disrupted. It's disrupted. And when it happens, there's no accountability on the child. The school system is now taking away all accountability on, the children. There are so many different chances. Kids are smart. They're very smart. They know when they can take advantage of a system. They know when they can continue to do the same thing and not get in trouble. I mean, there are different expectations in every school district you go to. Go to Orland Park. Go to New Lenox. There's different expectations than there are when you walk into Chicago public schools. Why is it in Chicago you get to smack each other in the head, call each other profanity, say things while class is going on, and there's no consequence? Why in the suburbs is there no detention? Because their parents told them, no, they're not going to detention. Why is there no homework ever in some of these districts? They eliminate it because no kids are doing it. We're dumbing down a system and not creating a situation where we set our goals high. I am a teacher. I've been doing this for 22 years, and what I will tell you is this. In my classroom, you get structure. In my classroom, you understand that I care about you and your success, and I won't tolerate anything other than that. And so what I see is if I set the bar high, this is the expectation, this is what I will continuously do in this classroom, and I won't back down, then you are going to rise to that expectation in this classroom. There's no questions. We're not allowed to fail. We're not allowed to drop below those expectations. Now, if I set those expectations low, they will only meet as high as I set them. That goes for parenting as well. If you set your expectations low for your kids, they will only meet the low expectation. So as parents, my suggestion is this. Goes for myself too. Stand consistent like anything else in life. If you say you're going to do something, you need to do it. Teachers, if you say you're going to do something, you need to do it. There's many, many times that kids leave one classroom and the expectations are set low and teachers give in because they're burnt out because something happens every single day and there's an issue every day, and they walk into my classroom and guess what? I don't tolerate that. So now kids are confused because they have no consistency. So what happens? Kids are going to take advantage of anything. They're going to take advantage of any of it because they want to play and they want to mess around and they want to talk to their friends and they don't want to listen and they don't want to learn. Now, can you sit here as parents and say, well, you should make it fun? And I work in a STEM lab. All they do is play. They play and they build and they create and they do, and it still exists. It still exists because the expectation was set that way, because the system was set that way, and the parents back it up. And so, what I'm saying to you is not to be harsh on you, but to have you open your eyes a little bit and say, yeah, you know your own kids. I hate when I hear parents say this. I know my own too. I have great kids, and I'll tell you what, they still can do things that I know they can do. They can talk. They can talk out of when they're not supposed to. They can break the rules at times. They can, and they're great kids. But I will never question another adult that's going to tell me that my child's doing that. First question goes to my kids. Now, can I have a conversation? And can I come up with, if they're adamant about something that didn't happen or did happen, yeah, we can have a conversation. And I can talk to an adult. That doesn't mean that I'm believing my kid over an adult. It means that I'm going to do my due diligence as a parent. But I'm not blaming the teacher and an adult. I give respect to those people for what they do. And I also know my kids are kids. And so we have to start understanding that there's a lot that goes into this process. But if it's only one-sided, then you're part of the problem. If your kids do no wrong, you're part of the problem. And ultimately, as a parent, I would hope that you would really be understanding that this is supposed to be all stakeholders of a school that are working together to get the success from your child. I don't believe many teachers out there, and I'm not saying all because I believe in 5% rule. 5% of our world is bad. 5% of teachers are bad, 5% of any profession, police officers, priests, whatever you want to say, 5% are probably just bad people. That means 95% are there to really do what they want to do. And that means support your child, help your child, see growth in your child. Nobody wants to see a child fail. Nobody. And so when we start looking at that, give the benefit of doubt a little bit. If something doesn't seem right or something's inappropriate, yeah, speak up. So when I say this, all stakeholders of the entire school should be an influence on your child's education. It's not just parents' fault. Let me reiterate that it's not just parents' fault. It is the school system's fault for not putting in systems in place that are going to provide consequences for behavior. It is administration's fault for not putting systems in place. It is budgeting from up top for not putting budgets in place that are going to give or provide the best resources for children. It is teachers' fault for not being consistent, for not holding students accountable. It is students' fault for not taking accountability for their own education. And that starts at kindergarten. I don't care how old you are understanding that this is your life. And parents should be reiterating this to their children, and so should teachers. This is your education. This is your way to get better. And this should be a conversation that happens throughout schooling. Because as much as you don't think that they can, they can. 5-year-olds can. And so when I say that, there are all stakeholders of a school that are part of the success of a student. I truly believe that. And I believe the end blame comes down to teachers. We all blame teachers at the end, but we're not the end. We're not the bottom. Below us are parents, because they're the number one teachers. And below them are students. They're the most accountable for their education. They're going to live their life at some point without other people, and they are accountable for what their life comes out to be. And that comes back to their encyclopedia. That comes back to what did they learn throughout the process. That comes back to this concept of understanding that if they want more in life, they want more opportunity, become better, become something, have more opportunity financially. To actually have these things, you need to learn, not just from school system, but from each other, from people, from experiences, from whoever they come in touch with, and better themselves. What do you think this podcast is about? It's about bettering your lives. It's about making sure that you are happy. Because you know what the biggest regret that people have is? They don't have opportunity. They don't have opportunity to better their lives or move forward. They don't have opportunity because they didn't have the education. Could they go back to school at any age? Sure can. Could they continue learning at any age? Yes, you're a lifelong learner. I can't express that enough. I learn every single day of my life. It doesn't matter. It could be anything you're talking about. It could be learning at the gym on a new technique, on enhancing a certain muscle group. It could be your diet plan. It could be anything in your life that you're learning from. Right now, I'm learning from my spiritual part. And so, it's interesting to me to talk about lifelong learners, but we also know opportunities pass us up a little bit. We know there are certain things that will pass us up. And so the biggest regret people have is missed opportunity. And when you miss those opportunities, it ultimately comes back to you are someone that didn't apply yourself when needed. Or maybe there's circumstances. I'm not saying everybody. I'm saying in general, I'm sure many of you, if you're honest with yourselves, wished you went back and paid attention, or wished you went to college, or even parenting. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. Maybe even parenting, you go back and say, hey, I wish I would have done this for my child. I wish I would have focused a little bit more on this. I wish I would have had more opportunity to do this. Maybe your circumstance didn't allow it. In any case, we can't live with excuses. We have to make action and we have to make changes. So I'm going to go back to this one more time. This school system is failing. And it's failing because of every aspect of a school system. All of these stakeholders are at blame. The people on the higher up, the budgeting, even above that, the politicians that we're putting in place. They're awful and they're ruining school systems. And what's happening is we are now failing from top down. Not having the funding, not having enough teachers, not having enough support. These things happen, and I get it. People are mad. I don't want to give more money to the school system. I'm already taxed enough. I get it. Yeah, funds are allocated is what people don't understand. They're allocated in wrong ways. A lot of times they're not coming to the school system. And so there are some situations that we have to open our eyes to, and we have to really, really understand from top down. The people in charge of your school, the people in charge of the school board, the ones that get on the school board. Everything is politic related. The actual teachers that are being hired, there are some bad teachers. There are some great teachers. It's like anything else. But ultimately, who is responsible for education? The child is. Every person is responsible for their own education. And guess what? Parents, you contribute to that. You are part of your child's education. And it starts at home because you are number one teacher. You're the number one teacher in their life. And when you teach them, let's go back to one of my previous podcasts, you are conditioning them from the womb to 7 years old. You are conditioning them on what is right and wrong, on the foundations of life, and what you've learned and passed down to you. That is their default way of thinking. Give them some creativity. Let them roam a little bit. Let them experience. Give them more creativity when they're younger. Our school system's failing. At pre-K, we're teaching these kids adding and subtracting. And in the old days, you were only lining up and playing and learning how to share and collaborate. Now in kindergarten, it is a full out adding, subtracting. You're now going through a concepts in kindergarten. You're learning actual Common Core state standards in kindergarten. It wasn't like that when I was a kid. We learned socializing. We learned all the crazy things that our kids are lacking now. Now you have technology. We're definitely lacking communication skills. We have AI walking in and taking over everything. It's just another way for kids to cheat. It's all cheating. It's not authentic. Any kid can. Every speech that you've heard in these graduation times, every single one of them, the 8th grade graduation speeches, the high school speeches, all the ones, they're all AI. They're not real words. They're all related AI. Can they change a little bit of words here and there? Sure. They are all generated, and it is not authentic. And the sad part is they're amazing speeches, but they're fake because they're not coming from that person's thoughts. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, I'm not here to argue that. We can have that conversation another time, but the argument is, can you benefit from it? Sure. Make your resume, put it in AI. You're going to look like the greatest thing on paper. But you better be able to back it up. You better have your encyclopedia open when you have that interview. You better be able to reach for the things you can make connections to. You better be able to talk and speak like a person's supposed to and look someone in the eye and have a real conversation. But what are our kids lacking now? They're lacking communication. They're lacking speaking. They're lacking writing. There's so many things that exist. They're lacking problem solving in math, in life. Things are done for them. I'm not going to get in and harp on all parents all the time. We will have a parenting podcast, and I'm sure that's going to hurt some people's feelings because there are different types of parents out there. And I will say that is a huge, huge issue in this world. It's a huge issue when you're talking about relationships. It's a huge issue when you coincide with other people that have different parenting styles. Because honestly, that's something that you have to both agree on. So I'm going to say this before I end this. I really hope people don't take offense and they open their eyes a little bit to what the education system is, what is actually happening. Please don't get me wrong. There are some amazing schools out there. 5 students just had a perfect ACT in Chicago public schools. Now everybody listens to Chicago public schools and thinks they're the worst. They always have 3 or 4 schools in Chicago public schools that are top rated in the nation. Now, keep in mind, the rest of the schools, yes, there are some struggles, but understand that Chicago Public Schools does have some of the best. And obviously it's picked and choose because we have these things called selective enrollment. But when we start talking about the suburbs, we have several. I know someone personally that had a perfect ACT score. So when we start looking at this, students are smart. They can be smart. You have systems put in place in some of these schools, and there are some amazing teachers out there. I mean, absolutely amazing teachers. It is the luck of some of these kids that can come across amazing teachers. Now, I'm going to give you this real quick exercise. I just want you to think of your favorite experience when you're in grade school, when you're in junior high, and when you were in high school. Come up with those 3 things. And I'm going to say this, just for lack of time. In grade school, you're probably going to think of a teacher that showed you some compassion. That's your favorite teacher, right? And people have memories of those teachers. When you're in junior high, you're probably thinking of your friends. You're probably thinking of experiences that happen. In high school, you're thinking of sports, a coach. You're thinking of club, a dance that you went to, prom, something like that. That's probably what ends up coming to mind when you talk about those experiences, when you talk about school. Not once do you hear people talk about, oh, I love when I learned in math class. That's not how it goes. You're learning from connections. You're learning from people. You're learning from teachers. You're learning from your your peers, your coworkers when you are working in the field. You're learning from conversation. And yes, you're learning from content. Collaboration is huge in schools. Talking, working with groups and partners and working on projects. That's huge part of life skills. You are learning life skills. And so when I say do this exercise, I want you to understand that some of the things that you favor may not be some of the things you need. Sometimes it's going to be exactly what you need. Some of those things you favored can be a huge part of your life. And some of the things that you didn't favor could also be a huge part of your life. Learning content, learning how to deal with a teacher you don't like, learning how to push through when it isn't something that's so great to listen to and it isn't so fun. And these parents have a lot of misconception that everything has to be fun and relative. And you watch all of these things on Instagram, and I just laugh so hard when you see the teachers that are doing a different handshake with their kids, and everybody looks at them. They're a great teacher. No, they're not. They just wasted probably hours upon hours learning how to do a handshake, instead of actual content that your kids can learn and use in their brain. Now, do I want to make it fun for my students? Absolutely. Is it great? But you're not always going to have fun. Learn that life lesson. Sometimes you're going to do difficult things. Sometimes it's not going to be fun. Could you incorporate it some? Yeah. But it's always the highlighted teachers that I laugh at because they're the ones that have no content-driven instruction. It is all based on fun, and I listen to my own kids tell me this. Well, we need young teachers that are fun, that can relate. I go, yeah, but what did you learn from them? Nothing. They're not learning from them. And there's nothing against young, fun teachers, because I think that if they really do their job well and they've learned properly, they could do both. But you have to start understanding that that is about getting approval instead of doing your job. And so as a teacher that does my job and has seen results and is data-driven and understands the importance of structure and understands the importance of students knowing that I care about them and I build a relationship with them, even if I am harsh, even if I am strict, even if I am somebody that really wants to see them being successful, I always get those kids to come back. I always get those results. I always get the growth because this isn't just about me, it's about their well being. If it's about me, then I want them to like me. I'm sorry, but I'm not your friend, I'm your teacher. And I'm sorry, I'm not your parent, I'm your teacher and I'm your dad. Put that in perspective when you go to parents. I love you, but I'm your dad and I'm your teacher. I'm your lifelong teacher. Just like my dad is, my mom is. So I will leave you with this quote. Actually, two quotes. Opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work. Put in the work. Thomas Edison said this, put in the work and you create opportunity. Learn from your work and it creates opportunity. And this one, education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. Albert Einstein said that. We're not talking about learning facts. All your multiplication facts, great, wonderful. Let's learn how to problem solve. Let's learn how to think. Let's learn how to use connections and take one thing that we learned in science and connect it to something we learned in math and maybe connect that to something we read. And guess what? We're making connections and we're now putting things together and we're solving problems. All right. So that's enough. That's a long podcast. Obviously, I'm passionate about education. I wish that I could change this, but I do believe that one pocket at a time, one teacher at a time, one school at a time can really make a difference in many people's lives. And if we can, great. The system has to change. The approach has to change. And when that does, you will see a difference in how much growth and how much better our future children can be. And so please keep this in mind. Please take a look at it and listen to some of the words that were being said and have an open mind. You may disagree, and I understand that, but also understand I'm in the trenches. I see it every day. So I want you to have a good conversation, change my mind if you need to, but put it on your own shoulders. Those are your kids, those are your babies, those are your loved ones, right? You'll do anything for them. So if that means not helping them with homework, don't help them. If that means discipline them so that they understand that education is important for them, that this is the key to their success, this is the key to opportunity, please do that. Signing off. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening. Have a good one.